Hey everyone, welcome to the Fin Factor live quarantine from the house edition. I'm Paul.
And I'm Aaron.
And we are doing this with snot and duct tape as best we possibly can to put on a show for you guys. You can see up in that corner over there. We've got the socials and everything for you as well. So Aaron and I decided, it's been long enough. We want to get in and talk with you guys. So I'm sure he's got the comments open and ready to go. So if you've got any comments or questions, please feel free to throw those in there and we'll go ahead and address them as they pop up. Aaron, how you doing over there, bud?
I'm doing, man. I'm still working away at home, pretty much doing the same job I've been doing, but at home. And just trying to survive like everyone else. Trying not to stock up too much on stuff. Cost me a little crazy, but staying sane, I guess. How about you?
No, not bad. Yeah, I've been stocking up on the things that we need, and I haven't been going too crazy, so it's been good. Letting everybody else get those toilet paper and bottles of water and whatnot. So I think we're doing a sane job of making sure that we have everything we need. So hopefully, all you folks that are listening and watching out there also doing well. We hope. So we've heard some actual reports of the last 4, I think it was NHL players that had been confirmed to have coronavirus were playing in San Jose most recently before the season had ended and everything. So
yeah, but they also played at the Staples Center, and that supposedly had all the outbreaks because the Staples Center is the busiest arena, I believe, in the world.
That is true.
They have the Kings, the Lakers, and the Clippers all playing together, plus a bunch of other stuff. So, and there was players from the NBA from teams that came into town from there that tested positive. So I'm pretty sure it came from Staples Center, not from SABC.
Yeah. No, it probably came from, but it came through, let's put it that way. So, again, hopefully everybody's feeling well and safe out there. So do we have any comments that we want to address right away here, or is there a certain topic you wanted to jump straight into?
Well, we could talk about the NHL in general. Do you think the season is going to come back?
Yeah, I don't know, man. It's tough. We just got word from the school district that the schools are now essentially done. Everything's going to be through, distance learning is what they're calling it now. So it's all going to be remote and everything else. If they're not even having kids go back to school, I can't imagine they're going to have the season continue. So this is kind of a really strange, thing that's happening here. A lot that they were talking about playing in front of no fans and whatnot. And now I don't even think they're going to get to that point. I think they're worried about the safety of the players and the personnel, the staff, everybody else who's there. Even if they're not, having fans there, you still got guys like, the equipment managers and all those other folks that would be, kind of exposing themselves to this as well. So I'm not really sure that season's going to continue. I think it might just have a hard stop, to be honest. What do you think?
Well, the NHL and the NBA kind of follow each other closely when they do certain things like this. And the NBA, they had a hard stop on their season before the NHL by like a day or two. In fact, they had to stop some games before they were about to start and just said, everyone go home. I think that was more because they actually had players test positive, whereas the NHL did not. But I've heard, they're contemplating doing the playoffs without fans in the arena. The NBA is a little bit different. Just there's less players involved because there's less people playing compared to hockey. But I don't know. I have a feeling it's just not going to happen. So I think it's 101 years since the 1919 Spanish influenza that took out a lot of people. And that year they were in the middle of the Stanley Cup Finals. I believe it was either 2-2 or 3-3 in the series. And they just stopped it and said, nobody's winning this year, which is crazy. The NHL was a lot different back then in 1919. Yeah. Only 6 teams, but it's I wouldn't put it past them to just kind of push it off, because to me, you're pushing the season really late. Baseball, I just heard today that baseball might not even play their season this year, which is crazy because they should have just started right now. So if baseball's not going to play, I can't imagine the NHL is going to play.
Yeah, no, it's just crazy. And when you think about, it's one of the things I wanted to talk about actually with as kind of a repercussion is, you've got, if you were a seller at the deadline, you're looking pretty good right now, right? Barclay Goodrow, he had 1 year left anyway, an extra year left, I should say. But the Sharks pick up a first for him, so does Tampa Bay loses that first. And then you've got, Brendan Dillon, there was a second, I believe a second and a third. Those picks, from Washington, they don't get to finish their season. They don't get to try a run at a cup, and that's potentially a rental player that he may not re-sign there. He may test free agency. So if that's the case, I mean, that's a hefty price that you paid for a guy who essentially played a handful of games and then that's it, right? So you have to wonder, is there going to be something that they do to kind of compensate for, these teams that were looking to make this playoff push and gave up assets for something that is now, if the season doesn't continue, now worth nothing essentially. So I'm not really sure what they're going to do about that. But if you were a seller at the deadline, you're looking pretty good right now.
Yeah, if there was any season to kind of tank, I guess this would be it. We do have some comments here. I'm just going to read them off a little bit. Okay. Isaiah Wentz said, I've missed you guys. We've missed you too. It's been, man, I think almost 3 weeks, 3 weeks since we've done a show. Zach Croft said, you guys are awesome. And do you guys see hockey coming back as early as June? We just kind of talked about that. And Isaiah again said, I'm excited for the offseason. There's so much possibility. And Anthony Sanchez, end the season. Sharks won't care if the season ended. Why should Sharks fan want season continue? The only reason I would want them to continue is to move up in the standings just a little bit more for that lottery pick. And that's because, I mean, right now the Sharks are third to last, I believe.
Yeah.
If I remember correctly. The Ducks and the Kings had just surpassed them. Not that it really matters that much. But that would just help mitigate that whole, first overall pick, or not first overall, but first round pick that the Sharks lost.
Yeah, you know what though? I think a lot of people said it too. I think they would rather have the Sharks give that higher round pick or higher overall pick, if you will, to Ottawa, as opposed to going higher up in the standings and then potentially LA or Anaheim gets that player. And then you have to deal with this player for the majority of the seasons to come because, again, they're both in the Pacific, or all three of them actually are in the Pacific Division. So, in a way, I'm kind of rooting for the Sharks for Ottawa in this case to win that draft lottery and get the best player that they can and kind of push LA and Anaheim as far down that list as possible.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
But so I don't know. It still hurts. It's still going to be a huge talking point too, and that's just going to stick to Carlson for his entire time that he's going to be in the Sharks.
Totally. Yeah. No, I 100% agree with you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions we got going on there?
Anthony Sanchez just said NHL to send an apology letter to all playoff-bound teams. Probably.
Seriously? Well, not an apology letter because it's not like the NHL, brought on the coronavirus or anything,
right?
It's not like it's their fault. But if they cancel the season, I mean, and it'd be understandable if they did, quite frankly. Like you said, all these other professional, the leagues, football and baseball and everybody else, professional volleyball, they're all canceling, right? So if that's the case, you can't really fault the NHL for wanting to protect its assets and its players. Everybody down from again, the players, the staff, the coaching staff that is, and then even down to everybody that works into the arenas and everything else. I mean, those folks, you want to keep everybody healthy is really what it comes down to. So, I can't imagine the season continues. I really can't. I don't think the NHL needs to apologize necessarily. I think it's probably saying that in jest, but
I think he's trying to be funny, like saying that's what they do is they send out apology letters.
Yeah, right.
When they mess up.
Nice. So, real quick, I wanted to share with you guys something that's not hockey related, just because my knee bumped my little table here and it shook a little. So I just want to let you guys know the lengths that I'm going to try to get this done for you guys. I stacked up books and I've got my phone on it, so I'm ruining a little bit of the magic. But I did want to share my attempt to get a camera stand working. This is Lego Technic, and it didn't quite work. So I've got the stack of books. If I bump the table and it shakes a little bit, I do apologize. I can't wait to get back in studio, to be honest with you. I think Jason's happy to not have us there for a little while at least. But, definitely we'll be glad to get back in the studio. So,
yeah, I can't, at least you got stuff behind you. I'm in my garage.
I do. You can see the blinds. I hung up on the blinds. I got to have a little bit of a background. Anyway, so there's that. I don't know in terms of compensation or anything like that for any of the teams that had gave up their picks and everything else. So it'll be a weird one. The one thing though I did want to talk a little bit about was apart from picks that Doug Wilson has picked back up. Now again, we're back into the first round. We've got our second round picks. But this is something that he does all the time. And this is how Jonas Donskoy got on the team was, he'll find these talents that are, from the European markets or whatever else. Seems like this time around, again, you've got guys from college. There's Arizona State University, Brinson Pasichnuk, who was just signed recently. This is a guy, if you go back, and I got the episode number 51. You can remember that because 51 is Radim Šimek's number, and he's a left shot defenseman, just like Pasichnuk is a left shot defenseman. So
look at you.
How about that, right? I just came up with that on the spot. I'm on fire tonight.
There was actually a question in the group, actually, from Matt Sider saying, what do you guys think of signings of Leonard and Pasichnuk?
Yeah. Pasichnuk. Now, what's his name? Roy Sommer at the Prospects game, he had called him Pasternak, and I'm like, it's not Pasternak. I wish it was, but it's not Pasternak. No, he has a hard time with names. But no, I think Brinson Pasichnuk is a phenomenal signing. I got to tell you, again, go back to episode 51. This is something that I was saying is like 20-something, 28 minutes in, whatever it is. But watch
you got to interview him.
Yeah, I got to interview the guy because when I watched it, and I'm watching from like the press box, I'm way up there, right? So it's hard to see, but I know that Ryan Merkley and Mario Ferraro were the two big, prospect defensemen that we were supposed to be seeing. You're supposed to have like showcase in that game. To be honest, again, back in episode 51, I had said it. I'm more impressed with this guy Pasichnuk. I want to know more about him, to be honest, So I got the opportunity to interview him, and I spoke with him a little bit, and he said he was the Torrey Krug type player, right? That's how he models his game after. He's a smaller guy. I think he's under 6 feet tall. I don't think he's 200 pounds. He might be 200 pounds, but
he's 200, he was 6 feet 200.
He okay. So he was quick. He played really well in the defensive zone. He did a great job breaking up plays, and I was like, man, that guy's really good defensively. And then I saw another player jumping forward and doing like all kinds of really good stuff in the offensive zone, just kind of dangling through people and everything, and it just looked really impressive. And I thought at first, I'm like, oh, maybe that's Merkley or maybe it's Ferraro. And then I saw, the guy Pasichnuk, and I go, oh, it's the same guy. And I figure, okay, maybe I'm getting confused because he's got his brother Steen Pasichnuk is also there as well. So I thought maybe I'm just, confused the whole thing. I'm seeing double. No, it's the same dude. So he was taking the puck from the defensive zone, skating it all the way through the offensive zone. He was doing this the entire prospect game, and he was making great defensive plays in the end, in his end. So, again, for me, that was the guy that when I watched that prospect game, he stood out to me. And I'm super stoked that, they've signed him. They're picking him up. We've got a little article here on the side now, kind of showcasing Pasichnuk there. So, again, I'm super excited about that. Now, to be honest about the Hobey Baker winner, what's his name? I cannot remember his name now.
Oh, Leonard.
Thank you, John Leonard. I don't know much about him, to be honest. I didn't really get to see much of his like highlights or, kind of his comparables. But it sounds like he's playing phenomenal hockey right now for, I believe it's UMass Amherst.
Yep.
And by all accounts, he's up there in the entire league. So he's doing a great job right now. He's got, I think it was over a point per game is what he was doing. And, he's just going to be a great addition. If this is a guy that can step in and play well. Now, again, maybe not right away, maybe not this coming season, but you got to look at a guy like Joe Pavelski. He started off in the AHL too. It took him a while, but he became the player that he was. So, you don't want to rush these guys, but I think they have high ceilings and good potential. So we'll see where that goes.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'm going to call him Pasternak now. I think he's going to, he could be the Mario Ferraro next season. I could see him maybe pushing for a roster spot. I wouldn't be surprised if he looks good in camp, but they just kind of want to hold him back a little bit. It also depends on if they make any moves this summer, if they move any defensemen out or bring anybody in. In fact, I had kind of I'd gone through a whole thing about that. If you want to talk about that now, or if you want to do that later,
far away, man.
I did a whole. I went to
Cap Friendly,
and did the GM armchair thing,
right.
And I'll pop it up over here, and so what I was doing was looking at, trading Brent Burns and who we trade him for. And so I was looking around at teams and said, you know what? I bet the Rangers might go for him. And what I've heard about the Rangers all season is kind of the coach kind of butted heads with Buchnevich, who's a very good offensive guy. He actually kind of reminds me of Kevin LeBanc, where very good offensively and kind of just not on the full 200-foot game.
Okay.
Young guy, whatever. And then Georgiev. I know everyone wanted to get him. I was kind of against him, but having him with Jones, I think, as a 1A, 1B would be good. He hasn't really been proven. I wouldn't want him. I wouldn't want him on the team to be a 60-game starter right away. He would need to show some stuff. So I think I wouldn't mind having him. And then, obviously we don't pick up Dell. And then the UFAs I signed was Marlon Thornton at $2 million a year. That was just because that's what Joe had this year was $2 million. They might even take less, maybe $1.5 million.
Probably
maybe $1 million. Who knows? Re-signed Nason. Re-signed Heed. It's interesting. After trading Burns and not having Heed, I looked at the free agency of right-handed shot defensemen, and there is not many. There's not many. There's either like super high end, which the Shark wouldn't have enough cap space for, or super low end like Tim Heed. So Sammy Vatanen was another guy who was a right-handed shot that I thought, I think that would be pretty decent to have Sammy Vatanen in there. And then scrolling down here to see what the lines could possibly look like. Top line with Couture, Kane, Bushnevich, and then LeBanc, Hurdle, and Meyer on the second line. Thornton, Marlowe, and Sorensen, keep that line intact. And then that fourth line, probably just kind of like this year, a rotation of guys, but Nason, Gambrell, Bergman, you have True in there. But then the defensive pairings, you got Carlson and Vlasic, Shimmick and Vatanen, and then Heed and Ferraro. And I think that's a pretty good mix of everyone, I guess. Puck moving and non-puck moving defensemen.
Sure.
And then you can see the salary cap is, I said it to 81.5. I think it's probably going to be a little bit higher, but who knows? Since this season didn't get finished, it might even be the same, or hopefully not lower.
Yeah, I was going to ask, how do you feel that the way the season ended is going to affect the new cap? Really, do you think that it goes?
I don't. It's really hard for it to go down because then you're gonna have to offer some buyout stuff for teams that would be over without doing anything to the roster. I would imagine that it would stay the same. That's what I think.
Okay.
I don't think it's going to be going up.
Yeah. Done with that. Okay. So, anything else? We've got comments, I'm sure. I can't see them, unfortunately, while I'm using my phone, so I don't get to see all the fun stuff there. But Aaron's on top of things. So what do we got there?
Well, going back to Leonard and Pasichnuk.
Okay.
Sharks just signed two. This is from Anthony Sanchez. Sharks just signed 2 studs from college, but yeah, I'm worried how Doug Wilson is pumping their tires too much. Well, yeah, they haven't played, but college guys, especially then that have played a couple years in college, they're going to be older and more mature. Their bodies are going to be ready for the NHL. Not that they're NHL ready, but it's different than a new drafted kid that's 18 years old. You're bringing in a guy who is maybe not professional hockey because it's college, but I mean, look at Cale Makar last year in the playoffs, right? This is an extreme example, but a guy like that can come straight out of college and go to the NHL and seem to fit in. Defensemen are a little bit harder, I think, of a position, but they've also have played longer. They have more experience against more stronger players, I guess you could say. More men-like players than guys coming out of junior hockey.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think the biggest thing for anybody coming into the NHL from either junior or from college is going to be the speed. But like you said, one of the main things that they have as an advantage, I mean, look at Austin Matthews when he played, in the European League. And he came over, he was playing against men. Now, they weren't as fast as the NHL, but he had the body. He was used to the physicality, all those things. So when you're coming out of juniors and you're playing against guys that are, 16, 17, whatever it is, you're playing against guys that haven't fully developed in terms of their bodies yet. They haven't fully figured out that they can't eat Kit Kats every night, right? So there's a lot of things that, you don't get when you're coming from such a younger group of talent, right? When you're playing in college, you're playing in the European leagues or whatever that case may be, and you tend to be like some of the older talents. You're more physically developed and ready to step in sooner, I would say, probably for the average player coming in onto a team. Now, I mean, the guys like Austin Matthews or Connor McDavid, these guys are supreme talents and whatnot, yes, but the majority of players that go through the draft that end up making it into the NHL, it takes them a little bit of time. I think these kids from college, I don't have the stats on it, but again, these kids from college, I call them kids, but they are older than the guys coming out of
21,
juniors and everything.
22.
So
Yeah.
yeah, they're more developed. And I mean, I'm not going to say that they're necessarily going to make better, health decisions so that their bodies are, tip top shape than a guy coming out of juniors will be. But, again, they're just a little bit older, more mature. I think it kind of helps them when they're going onto their teams and they're taking instruction from, their development coaches and whatnot. I think it kind of helps them being already the size that they need to be. Because a lot of times you'll hear, oh, he needs to bulk up. Like, he's good enough, but he needs to bulk up. A lot of these guys don't need to bulk up really that much anymore because they're just older. So yeah, no, I mean, there's pumping of the tires as you put it, and of course everyone's going to overvalue their prospects. We saw it this year with the Sharks, and we see it every year with every team. That's why a lot of guys clear waivers in the first week or so, because everybody's kind of seeing, okay, we think we got a good thing in our prospects. We don't need to add anybody else. So that first week or whatever it is of people kind of clearing waivers. That's generally why, right? Because everybody's still kind of pumped up about their own prospects and they don't think that they need to pick anybody else up. So, yeah, you're going to see that. But I think you're seeing is guys, not just Doug Wilson, but some, collegiate sports writers that are saying, hey, these guys are the real deal. You hear from his coach, and obviously his coach is going to pump his tires too. But you hear his coach saying all the right things. He's a gem. He's his body is ready for the NHL. Once he gets the speed and everything up to it, he's going to be, a mainstay. So you hear him saying things like that. And it's not just Doug Wilson. It's, kind of that community around college hockey that's kind of saying the same thing about these guys. So, it is really exciting times right now, at least for me. When you talk about how much the cupboards are kind of getting restocked, because when you looked at what we had in the pipeline, and, we had always talked, Darren, about, Shakovich and Chmielewski were like my top two guys. I was just really hoping that they would make that jump, and it just didn't happen. And the guys that were getting brought in, they're playing well, but there was a revolving door. So nobody was really sticking, really sticking, right? So, it'll be nice to see a couple new faces show up in camp, try their hand at it. And, hopefully they pan out. Again, maybe not this coming season, but with some patience and some good, direction from the development staff, I think they could be some pretty good players.
Yep. Debbie Smith just said that kid from Arizona looks great. I know it's just a highlight reel, but fun to watch for sure.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And going back to kind of what you're saying earlier, the kids that are in college, they're almost like late bloomers too. Cause these kids, when they're really good, they're taking the elite kids going into major junior hockey in Canada, and some of the other programs around the US. If they're not in that program, most likely they're not going to make the NHL. It doesn't mean they're not going to, but there's some kids that develop later in college and come out just fine. I mean, Cale Makar is probably one of the best examples that I can think of right now, from a kid who is, went to college and became almost a superstar. I'd say definitely an all-star player for the Avalanche. Yeah. So the other thing though, his highlight reel stuff is great, but you have to also think about his competition, who he's playing against. Some of those guys are just not good because they're amateurs. They're not professional players. When you're in the collegiate level, you're amateur.
Right.
So you kind of have to take it in a grain of salt. I mean, it's great that he makes his highlight reel stuff and it worked, right? It's not like he's doing highlight reel stuff and then it didn't work and it's just flashy. It's one thing, right? It's better to have a prospect who's coming from leading his team or leading the league, and not a guy who, barely lit it up or didn't even light it up. And you're like, who is this guy? But anyway, just trying to pump the brakes a little bit. I'm not saying this guy's going to come in and make the team right away either. Yeah. All right, let's change subject a little bit. Sure. Anthony Sanchez just said, my wife is really getting sick and tired of you talking about trading Burns. If you continue talking about trading Burns, then I won't be able to watch the show. I'm sorry. I'm throwing out a scenario, and we talked about this on the show. You're right. I talked about this a lot. And it's not that I want to trade Burns. We love Brent Burns. We absolutely love him. It's more of the contract that is kind of getting too big there's a whole slew of reasons that we've talked about over and over and over. Yeah. Anthony also said Doug Wilson needs to really look for a true number one right winger, either trade, European leagues, or surprise draft pick.
Yeah. I don't know if you're going to find a true number one right winger fresh out of the European leagues. If you could, he'd be snatched up probably by now. So I don't know. That would have to be an amazing job by the coaching staff to find someone who's not on every other team's radar already, and turn him into a number one right winger. So
I mean, that could be our first round pick as a right winger.
What's that?
Our first round pick could be a right winger.
Yeah, no, it could be.
And
it
with this draft, it's possible. It's possible. Yeah. Just don't remember the top 3 to 4 guys overall in the draft could play in the NHL. The rest of them need a year or two usually before cracking the NHL roster. So don't expect an all-star player, superstar player to come out of this draft for the Sharks because they have a later first-round pick.
Yeah, for sure.
Isaiah Wentz earlier said, does anyone feel like Meier and LeBanc have been kind of lazy this year? I love them, but they haven't produced much this year. I think
they haven't done anything in the last month or so.
Well, they kind of did, but not their consistency was the issue.
Okay.
I think their consistency was an issue, and their 200-foot game wasn't there. They kind of pull up short. I think they're lazy in the terms of lazy on their own end, like on the back check and everything, and the controller disconnect a few times for Kevin LeBanc throughout the season. Just little things like that. And to me, that's all mental, and that's all part of being a mature player and realizing that you need to play. This is why teams always have veterans and not just a team full of super young guys.
Yeah.
They have to teach them, this is how you play. This is how you prepare. Even if you're getting a beat down 7-2, you still got to bust your butt and get back there. So
yeah,
I think it's kind of growing pains in a way.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about kind of, the lack of effort sometimes from Kevin LeBanc. And we know that Timo can do more. We've seen him do more. Last season, he did a whole heck of a lot more. We're expecting growth, not regression from a young player like that. So, yeah, it's tough. But, I mean, we've talked about this kind of ad nauseum with these two specifically. But, hopefully this is an opportunity for them to kind of get away from the game, get away from all the pressure and, the media talking about it and everything else. Hopefully this is a big, long break for them to kind of just reset and reload mentally. And when it comes back time to get into training camp mode and everything, get back to, their basics and the things that they need to work on, and really realize that, it is a team game. I'm sure they understand that, but they need to contribute, not just on the score sheet, but also in the defensive end. As one of the reasons I felt like Martin Jones's numbers were so bad, because Aaron Dell's numbers were really bad too, both of them. So is this something that is, just the goaltending has both had really bad years, or is it, systematic? And to me, it seems a little bit more systematic. You get guys like those young guys that are stepping on that fourth line. I thought they did a pretty good job. Like Stefan Nason specifically, he's not necessarily young anymore, but new to the team, coming in and playing a great brand of defensive hockey and pressuring, lots and lots of pressure. I love that. So, I think we get those guys kind of buying into that. And just as Bob Bugner has kind of done already this season, this season past, I should say. And I think that we're going to see a much better effort. Hopefully we see a better effort individually out of LeBanc and Timo Meier, because I know they've got another year. They've got more that they can give. And for some reason, it's just not showing through.
Anthony had a good point about them.
Okay.
Meier and LeBanc were not sheltered anymore and were facing tougher competition. Pavelski, Nyquist, Donskoy allowed Meier and LeBanc to have more room on the ice to produce, which I agree.
Okay.
And that kind of goes towards the depth of the Sharks last season compared to, or maybe I should say 2 seasons ago compared to this last season.
Yeah.
A year ago. How about that? A year ago, the depth was there more than it was this year.
Yeah. No, and a great observation. But again, that's what we were saying, was we were hoping that these guys were ready to step up. Apparently, playing those sheltered minutes behind bigger name players is a thing for them. So we were hoping that they would take the reins and kind of take that opportunity upon themselves to really step forward and shine and be more for this team than just, what they were in the previous season. But maybe that's it. Maybe they just weren't ready for that spotlight, and the guys that were in front of them were kind of blinding everybody to that fact. So who knows? Good observation there.
Do you think Marleau and Thornton are coming back?
Yeah.
Both of them.
I think both of them are coming straight back. I don't think Marleau, especially if the season ends early, 100%. I think Marlowe's coming straight back to the Sharks. Not even a blink of an eye. He's in his house right now. Did you see this, by the way?
The
Christina Marlowe
rollerblading?
on what's that?
Did you see the rollerblading?
The rollerblading, yes.
Uh-huh.
It's hilarious because she's in there, she's recording them, from going across the screen, and here's Marlowe, he's doing his skating and whatnot, and his kids screaming behind him, "No skating in the house!" And it's so hilarious, man. It's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he bought that house. He could skate in it if he wants to. But yeah, no, I think it's a slam dunk for me. Especially if the season doesn't continue. Even if it does continue, I think he's coming back anyway. I think he doesn't want to play for anybody else. That's obvious.
Mm-hmm.
So I think for me, Marlowe isn't easy. It's a slam dunk. Joe Thornton, on the other hand, I know you had some qualms about him maybe coming back, but I'm still of the mind that as long as he wants to play, he's going to have a roster spot. Doug Wilson's sort of said as much. I mean, he can't really hold him to that, but he has said, as long as Joe wants to, he has a spot on this team. Be it in a roster position or in front office or wherever. If Joe wants to be a part of this team, he's a part of this team. So
I don't think there's anyone to replace him on that third line center yet. So I think there's a perfect spot for him on that. The price is going to be right, and he's not done. So I think he will be back.
Yeah, for sure.
You
don't think they're going to go out?
Fact that the season ended a little bit early too helps him because he's got a break.
Yeah.
Physical.
You don't think they're going to go out and get Chris Tierney then, huh?
Well, he's an RFA, isn't he?
So get him.
They don't have the picks to offer. They'd have to trade for him.
Yeah, exactly. Trade. That's fine.
Well, they wouldn't be able to sign like an offer sheet. I mean, they'd have to trade for him.
Yeah.
Ottawa has enough of our stuff. We don't need to give them more.
They've got our stuff. I love that. Great take, Aaron. I love it. What else we got?
The Sharks need to. This is from Anthony Sanchez. The Sharks need 2 clones of Owen Nolan to make us a successful team next year.
Okay. I'm cool with that. See, the thing is, Timo Meier is supposed to be that Owen Nolan player, is he not?
Yeah, and those kinds of players take a while to reach their peak. Yeah. He's so young. So Timo will get there. I'm not worried that he won't get there.
Yeah, he'll get there. I guess for me, again, going back to Timo, we were really thinking that he was going to build on his previous season, and it didn't seem like he did that, unfortunately. But yeah, no, absolutely, I'd love to have a couple Owen Nolans on the team. Guys are running around banging people, and they put the puck in the net too. I'm all for that. So, absolutely.
Anthony Sanchez said, I know I've asked this before, but I think the Sharks need to bring in a player like Tom Wilson next season. The Sharks need more grit to protect our young players. Yeah, there's only so many Tom Wilsons out there that can both play, because he's not just a goon. He can actually, he puts up 40, 50 points in the season. Granted, it's with Washington, but 40, he's a 20 to 30 goal scorer on a loaded team. And he's even, because I had him in my fantasy team, he's had less penalty minutes than normal. Usually he's about 150 penalty minutes, 150 plus. And I think he's down to about 80 or 90, which is significantly lower. He was doing less goony stuff. I also think he's been suspended so many times that he can only do so much. But my point is there's not a lot of players out there that can skate and play like he can and do the stuff that he does.
Yeah, no, and it's funny when you get a guy out of the box, how much more he can possibly produce, right? And something that I've said about Evander Kane this previous season was, I want to see him out of the penalty box more often and using that scoring touch that he has, because I know he's got it. But I agree to an extent. It'd be great to get a guy that can play, but is also more of that detractor, if you will, of messing around with your guys. So Evander Kane kind of plays that role, right? We kind of already have a guy like that, but I wouldn't mind there being more than just the one, because I would like Evander to have more focus on putting the puck in the net, because I think he can be a very good goal scorer, phenomenal goal scorer. It's just that there are too many times where you see him taking a penalty here and there, or he's out running somebody because somebody else got ran previously and he's sticking up for him, and now both of them are in the box, and so I would rather Evander focus more on the goal scoring, and when absolutely necessary in the moment, if he needs to challenge somebody else, fine. But a guy like Tom Wilson, let's not forget, Tom Wilson's got what did we say? It was 4 years, $5 million a year or something. It was
Well,
whatever it was.
I don't think he was saying exactly to get Tom Wilson. That
Yeah. That type of player, right?
Right.
But that's my point is look at what that type of player can bring. That type of player is going to cost you, right? So, is that the type of guy that's going to make this team back, put this team back in contention? I don't think so. I think honestly, it's more that defensive presence. It's that a more veteran, two-way, third line type players that are going to be, more valuable to this team than a guy who's going to be able to go out there and run people because they're going after your younger guys. So I would like to see the Sharks go after a guy who's maybe a little bit more of a veteran presence. We talked about an Eric Fair type before this season had started. Really good in the face-off dot, good in his own zone, can still put the puck in the net and produce, big body, right? That's the type of player I think that's going to help the Sharks get back to where they need to be. You put a guy like that alongside of Stefan Nason, alongside Lean Bergman, or who was the other guy that came in? He was playing some really good minutes for that fourth line. I can't remember now. But there was a couple players that, were stepping in and doing a pretty good job. There was still that one revolving door kind of thing. I think if you get a veteran presence, even if it's a fourth liner, a guy who's really responsible defensively, I think that's going to help out quite a bit.
Yeah, definitely. Try to think of who the player you're talking about was. There's Bergman. There was,
it's going to hit me later. Somebody will put it in the comments, I'm sure. But
Nason was the other one, but playing with Nason.
Yeah.
Shellman,
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Joel Shellman. Yeah. No, I think he did a great job. It took him a little while, I think, to stick, but you could tell right near the end before, the coronavirus hit, you had Shellman playing more games consecutively. And I think he kind of was showing them that, I can stick around. Now, granted, we don't have a whole lot of depth to work with. So maybe that's just the best of the rest. But at the same time, I thought he did a pretty good job, a bang-up job of playing on that line. And I thought there were many nights where the fourth line was pinning teams in their own zone. And I was really impressed with that. And I think if the Sharks don't re-sign Stefan Nason, it's a huge miss. Huge miss.
That fourth line that we had in the last month is what we needed a year ago.
Yeah.
It sucks that it took that long to figure out the fourth line because they were gelling and they were jamming pretty good at the last month of hockey.
Yeah.
I almost want to bring all three of those guys back. Those Shellman, Nason, and Melker, I think was the other one, wasn't it?
Melker was, but yeah, you're right. It was Melker playing on that fourth line. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. He's a UFA. Do you bring Melker Carlson back?
Not at $2 million a year, I don't think. I think you need to put a little bit of money into that number one right wing that I think was Anthony. Somebody was talking about.
That's hard to say. It's hard to say because Melker was on top penalty killer unit of the league.
Yeah.
So I have a feeling I don't think they'd be able to afford him. I honestly think another team's going to go out and get him. A team that was bad on the penalty kill. They're going to throw some more money at him. I mean, $2.5 million versus $2 million, right? The Sharks aren't going to be able to afford $2.5 or $3 million.
Right.
So I have a feeling someone else is going to pick up Melker.
I could definitely see that. I could absolutely see that.
People are talking about, after the Tom Wilson comment about getting grittier because we lost Dylan, who was kind of part of that grit. Yeah. Definitely.
Barclay Goodrow.
Yeah, Barclay too.
Believe it or not, I mean, I still see Barclay as kind of a little gritty, he's a pest kind of sometimes. He can be,
Yeah. Isaiah said it'd be nice to see Burns more aggressive. Imagine if he'd actually hit people. I think because he's getting older, he's not throwing his body around as much because he wants. I mean, would you want Brent Burns to play 68, 70 games, or do you want him to play 82 games without throwing his body? It's. I think it's a health thing, an age and health thing.
Honestly though, Burnsy, he's a hulking human being. And I mean, I think he had some stories. I think it was dropping the gloves with John Scott, where he was on there and he was talking about how he would like wrestle people in the locker room. And John Scott was like the only guy that Burnsy didn't take down. Burnsy would wrestle everybody, like MMA. He was very into MMA for a while, and he was just like trying to, choke everybody out or whatever. And John Scott was the only guy he couldn't take down. So And of course, this is coming from John Scott, so who knows? But I'm
that
sure
'cause John
there's a
Scott
lot of truth to that, though.
He's a big
So
dude, though.
he's a
He's
humongous dude.
5'5".
But I mean, my point is, Burnsy's no stranger to being physical. But when it comes to his play on the ice, there was that season or two where it was the Burnsy butt check, and it was like every time he threw a hit, man, it was that butt was flying out there and just drilling people.
Well,
and you know what? I haven't seen that. I hadn't seen it before,
we
and then I
did
haven't
see
seen
it
it since.
the last game of the season against Chicago. Remember, he threw the butt check out, and they called a penalty on him for roughing.
Okay, yeah, that's true.
I
That's
mean,
true.
I think part of it was his game kind of evolved and changed from what he used to do, throwing the body around, to keep him on the ice and out of the penalty box. That's what I think.
Okay. I don't know. I would have to take a look at the stats on that one to see if he was even getting penalties in the first place. Personally, I would love to see him use the size. And if it means that he only plays, like you said, 68, 70, whatever games, because he has to take a spa day every once in a while. Well, you know what? That's where that redundancy with Erik Karlsson comes in. So, I mean, I wouldn't mind necessarily if it means that he's more, I don't know, intimidating in the defensive zone and guys aren't walking around him as easily. He doesn't have to do the human Zamboni as often as he does because, they're playing better defensively and him being physical is a part of that. If that's what that means more wins. And I'm okay with that. If that means he doesn't play for, 12 games a season, and the Sharks just have to pick up the slack for those 12 games, we have an Erik Karlsson that can pick up the slack. So I wouldn't even be opposed to that necessarily. So, I personally, I'd throw the body around and take a couple spa days. That's my take on that. I'd love to see that more often.
All right, here's a couple players that Anthony Sanchez has thrown out there. Anthony Duclair for right wing. I could see that, but he's not a top right winger.
He's not top.
He scored all his goals for Ottawa just because Ottawa had nobody.
Yeah.
So I don't see him as a top right winger.
Who is his centerman in Ottawa?
It wasn't Tierney.
Okay.
I forgot their name.
Doesn't matter anyway.
And then real quick answer. Who do you keep if you can only keep one? Melker or Nason?
Nason.
I agree.
And okay, and the quickness in that reply, it should not mean anything in terms of that Melker's bad. Okay, Melker's not bad. Melker's great for what he is. I think our penalty kill being top of the league had a lot to do with Melker Karlsson and Barclay Goodrow. Now we lost Goodrow, which sucks. And if we lose Melker Karlsson on top of that, our penalty kill is probably not going to be number one in the league again. Does our penalty kill need to be number one in the league, or can we survive with it being like number 8, 10, right?
Top 10.
I would rather have the guy who I can put up and down the lineup, and who's shown a lot in terms of how hard he's willing to work. I don't know. For me, I'll take Stefan Nason. I don't know if you would agree or not. I would take Stefan Nason. I know what Melker brings, and there's nothing wrong with what Melker brings. It's just that for what I think this team needs, I would much rather have Stefan Nason than Melker Karlsson.
To me, they're kind of a similar player, but Nason's younger and faster.
Okay.
And probably cheaper. Which is why there was a whole article I think Kurz put out earlier in the season, much earlier, maybe even the offseason, about how those players like Melker, basically those third line guys, they kind of get squeezed out of the league because there's always gonna be someone who's younger and cheaper that's going to do the same job that they are, and then they're not the all-star player that's getting all the tens of millions of dollars now, so there's no room to afford for these guys, and so they get squeezed out of the league and they go to Europe.
Well, I mean, like you just said, how much is Melker going to make on the open market if he goes there, right? You're talking about maybe 2.5. The Sharks don't want to spend 2.5 on a guy who's basically a great penalty killer, but that's what he brings is penalty killing. I'd rather spend the $1.5 million even on a Stefan Nason.
And then you get a team that pays him $3 million a year because that's what the open market, in order to get him, how much it's going to cost. They signed him to 3 years, and now everyone's saying, "Man, he's way overpaid," and then they want to get rid of him. Right. And then he's out of the league, or he gets bought out or something, whatever. Or he goes to play in Arizona because nobody else wants him. Anthony also said, could Wilson be interested in bringing back San Jose Shark legend Mike Hoffman? No, I'm guessing you don't know the whole history there.
Yeah.
There was a history between Hoffman and Erik Karlsson back when they were in Ottawa. had to do with Eric's wife and Hoffman's either girlfriend or fiance. I think it was his girlfriend. I'm not going to get into the details because it's just pretty ridiculous, but it pretty much spurred the trade for Hoffman. And that's how he became a legend in the first place, because of this stuff that went down, and Ottawa had to get rid of him real quick. So the Sharks basically flipped them for assets. I can't even remember what it was now, but whatever.
Second, maybe. It doesn't matter.
Yeah. So there's zero chance of all the teams that Mike Hoffman would go to. The Sharks are dead last.
Yep. 100%. Hey, by the way, speaking of dead last, I did see an article. I think it was on The Athletic. I did see an article about the best and worst broadcasters. So the Sharks are actually number 6 on that list. Pretty awesome. They are top notch. The Carolina Hurricanes, I think, had the number 1, which I would love to listen to one of the broadcasts. Who knows? Guess who got the worst?
Boston.
Yep. Absolutely. And I knew it. I started looking at the article and I'm like, I bet Boston's the worst. Number 31. I scroll. It's the first one they put is the worst one. Boston. Like,
yep.
Okay.
Absolute worst.
Yeah. Because I know the only few times that I've heard their broadcast is, and that guy, whoever it is, he's such a homer. I just want to punch him in the face every time.
Yep.
But anyway, that was just wanted to throw that in there because we've talked about it before and it was confirmed per The Athletic. So yeah.
Anthony asked if we have to trade our first round pick for Kasperi Kapanen from Toronto. And then Isaiah followed it up and said, I think we'd have to trade more than just our first, which I agree. I can't imagine a first round pick for straight up for kind of any player, really.
Well, again, the question becomes
a top player, I should say.
Yeah, but the question becomes, is the guy you're going to draft in your first round, where are the Sharks going to pick? Right? Tampa Bay. Where are the Sharks going to pick? Deep 20, right?
Where's Tampa
Is that
Bay?
player that you're going to draft better than Kasperi Kapanen? Maybe. Or do you know that Kasperi Kapanen is the guy that you want? If that's the guy that you want, then who cares what you could have had at 20-something, right?
No,
take the guy
I don't.
You want.
My point is, I don't think Toronto would accept just a first-round pick for Kapanen. That was my point. I would do it. I would trade a first-round pick for Kapanen. My point was it's not enough to get him.
I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, if it's an asset, if it's, another draft pick that comes along with it or a prospect or whatever the case may be, you have to just weigh those options. Look, is this a guy that we think is going to blossom into something? Is this asset in terms of the draft pick? Is there a guy that we're really targeting there? If not, then who cares? If they've got somebody on their radar on the first round, even if it's 20-something deep that they think is going to be like the next big thing, then okay, fine, use the pick. But if you're just, rolling the dice on a guy because that's where your pick lands, I mean, I don't know. I would rather take the known good, the known quantity. That's why I like the trade for Erik Karlsson. That's why I like the trade for Evander Kane. The guys that get picked in those positions, by another team. Now, if the Sharks had that pick, it may not have been that same exact player. So you can't even go back and say, this is the player that got taken, right? Because a lot of teams can go back and play the, hindsight's 2020, coulda, woulda, shoulda game. But what it comes down to is the player that you would have picked if the Sharks would have picked a specific guy. So I don't know. For me, I like the known good, the known quantity. I'll take that all day long. Here's my first round pick. If it's 20-something overall, fine, whatever. So if you think they would need more than that, they would have to weigh their options. But I mean, I don't know. I mean, Toronto's right up against the cap, so maybe they'd be a little more willing to accept, something a little bit less than more than the first, right?
That's what Anthony just said. Toronto's at the cap ceiling. They might have to give up something for a salary dump.
There you go. So, and see, Anthony, I don't have comments scrolling on the side of my screen or anything. You and me, buddy, we're right here. Okay.
Jack Edwards is the Boston homer.
Oh,
that's his name.
Oh my God.
He is listen to the terrible what you're talking about, the fight between Kane and Chara, and listen how much of a homer Jack Edwards was.
That's the one.
Is Alex Galchenyuk an option? I don't like Galchenyuk because everywhere he's gone, he's been a problem.
Yeah.
He's had massive potential every single place he's gone to every year and has never lived up to it. And he's been traded so many times. There is definitely something wrong. He was in the news years ago, I think when he was on Montreal or maybe maybe it was Arizona. I can't remember, but he was out drinking during something. I can't remember what it was. He was partying, basically, party boy. And they also, I feel like Doug Wilson doesn't really like Russian players that much.
Okay.
He hasn't. If you look back in the history of Doug Wilson being a GM, there's not many. There are some. The latest one I can think of is the guy we traded to Vancouver.
Yeah.
Goldobin.
Nikolai Goldobin. Yeah. I keep thinking Mirko Mueller because that's the other guy that we traded away, but it's not Mirko. No, Nikolai Goldobin. Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. So I don't like Galchenyuk, and I don't think the Sharks would ever sign him unless it was super cheap and it was a depth player, but he wouldn't be a top guy on the team.
Yeah, honestly, I'm with you on that one. If there's a guy who's been, bouncing all over the NHL, it's kind of a red flag. Now, granted, we picked up, Evander Kane, and he seems to be working out just fine for the San Jose Sharks. So you can't really, judge every book by the cover, right? But at the same time, I think you only have so many players that you want to take risks on before, you're going to crap out, basically. So you've got, a guy like Evander Kane, he's worked out. You've got Ryan Merkley in the system. He's the guy that you're rolling the dice on. I don't think you want to add anybody else really that you're rolling the dice on. If Galchenyuk is that guy that's, been, I wouldn't say problematic, but obviously something's up because he's been traded all over the place. You gotta look at that and think, do I really want to take the chance? Do I want to take the chance on this guy still? Maybe everybody else in your roster is solid. Everyone's not going to be problematic, whatever, and you're going to take a chance on a guy, fine. But if there's other guys in the system that you're just not sure about, and then you're bringing another guy in, do you really want to have, a handful of guys that you're not sure how they're going to, be in the locker room and everything else? I'm not really sure about that.
Fun fact: he was born in Milwaukee.
Really? Galchenyuk?
Yeah. So he was on Montreal, Arizona, Pittsburgh, and he got traded to Minnesota this year.
Yeah.
So he was on 2 teams this year. I don't know. I don't see it happening.
Yeah. You know what I do see? I do see some pretty good looking t-shirts and a hat here. So I'm going to plug that real quick.
Oh,
not bad at all. So you can only see the fin. But there's a factor under it. There you go. There's the fin factor. So these teal and over there gray got the hats and everything. So if you go to thefinfactor.com, hit the 3 little buttons in the top, or the lines in the top corner there. Make sure that you hit the support the show, because that is what you're doing, to support the show, and you can purchase any of these items there. It really does help the show out, especially you hear people talking about, support your local businesses. Randy Hahn's been doing that, buying from all the restaurants. Please, we are an LLC. Support your local business if you can. We do appreciate it. So, God, man, it's been awesome though. It's a great chatting here. We're getting back in the saddle again. I've really missed, taking comments and questions from you guys. So I'm pumped. I'm glad that we're back. We'll probably only have a little bit of time left. So, Aaron, if you've got just a couple more questions that you want to throw out there, then we'll handle those.
We don't, but
okay.
I did want to talk about earlier, if the NHL were to do playoffs with no fans in attendance, right? How could they make it fun? How could they change it up? It's kind of an opportunity for them to do something different, because right now, if without fans, you're really, really drawing a TV crowd, or trying to, and you'd also be competing with the NBA, and the NBA is ratings gold for TV. So I was thinking about it. I'm like, okay, well, if there's no fans there, you don't need the nets behind the goals. I think you set up those cameras behind the nets from a distance and zooming in on the ice so you could see more of the ice. I think you get a better angle of the other team's goalie, because you're shooting up against the goalie. You know what I mean? So if you have a zoomed in shot coming back, especially on power plays, you can see it. Because I like seeing the other angle. They always have the camera that's on the glass behind the goalie looking up.
Right.
That's kind of cool. But if you could zoom in all the way and see the whole action of the ice from the shooter's point of view, because you see the goalie, I think that'd be pretty cool. I also think they should put some cameramen around the glass at different points. And what I'd really like to see is, the NBA used to do this. I don't know if they still do, but you could log in online and watch the stream, and there's a bunch of different windows, and you could choose what angle you want, and you could change it whenever you want. You just click on it and change it. I think that'd be really cool. I think it could bring in some ratings. And then the whole advanced stats thing that you saw at the All-Star game, where they're wearing the vests and they have all the analytics and whatever, everything's spitting out. I think that would be clutch, having that ready to go.
Yeah, and you know what? I mean, what better time to test that out? I mean, there's not even fans in the arena, so the only way people are going to see this is by tuning in. So, I mean, this is such a great opportunity for them, to use this technology. Maybe not the Fox Tracks puck thing, the trajectory and like that, but they did lots of stuff with the chip in the puck and everything, where you can see where everything's going. It's not just about reaction times and that kind of thing. They show you like kind of in a digital sense. They basically had like NHL 20, but with real data, and then they plugged it into the simulation engine, and you could see the simulated players doing exactly what the players in the ice were doing, and you can tell when a goalie, when the pass comes across, the goalie is taking too long to react and slide across, and it'll tell you like down to like the milliseconds, his reaction timing, and when the puck's going, if you'd made a 2 millisecond faster step, he'd have been there. And you can see that like by the data, not just by the eyeball test and seeing he was too slow, right? You can tell exactly by how much he's too slow. Things like that, so it's really interesting stuff. And they even had like with the stats, like real-time stats, you could pick a player and like see every single thing that's happening with that player live, just happening right then and there. So it was really cool stuff that they had. So I think it's a great opportunity for them to take that technology and just start using it because, again, if they start the season back up and if they don't have fans there, this is the only way people are going to be able to watch. So everyone that's watching hockey will get the opportunity to see this stuff in action, and kind of trash it. Of course, most people will be like upset about it because it's change. Nobody likes change, but
Right.
it's get some good feedback at least from the fan bases and from everybody else. So. I think that now would be a great time for them to do that.
The other thing you could do is put up VR cameras
Yeah.
on the ice, or I mean, not on the ice, but on the glass. And then you can log in and be like, well, I got glass seats. Put one in the penalty box. Then you can watch the guys in the penalty box when they go in there. I think you should bring back the ref cam for those games.
Yeah.
That could be an option for you. I don't know. I just think it's a cool opportunity if they were to do it. But as we said earlier, I don't think it's going to happen.
I think it's done.
Yeah.
I think we're looking at next season.
Yeah.
I don't think there's going to be an end to this season. I don't think there's going to be even just regular season. I don't think there's going to be playoffs. They're talking about this 24 team playoff bracket. Actually, they had all 31 teams in there. And they're talking about doing some sort of weird tournament for, the draft lottery instead, which, okay. But I mean, the way that would work is they said like the worst teams would get buys all the way up until like the last like couple games or whatever it is, like the last round of like 8. And all the best teams would have to play from the very beginning, playing over and over and over and over again until they get to the worst teams. And I don't know. I mean, it's interesting, but that's not hockey. So I don't know. It's a weird one.
Yeah, it doesn't. To me, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
Anthony Sanchez just wrote best UFA forwards next season: Wayne Simmons, Michael Frolik, Jimmy Vesey, Taylor Hall, Anthony Duclair. That's it.
Yeah.
I think it's going to have to come via trade.
Yeah, I think so too. Then the question is, what are you going to trade? And I know you don't want to hear it, and your wife's going to get mad, but I think Aaron's still thinking Brent Burns. And again, we've talked about this too. It makes sense. We already have a puck-moving defenseman, supreme offensive talent from the blue line. You have 2 of those. That's more, the more the merrier. I'm fine with that. But it seems to be that part of the problem there is that those types of players tend to have more giveaways. It's not because they're bad. It's just because their style of play, they're trying to move the puck up the rink. They play tons of minutes. So obviously they're going to get the puck given away more often or taken away from them more often. So, it's just kind of how it plays out. So if you've got 2 of those guys, maybe you're giving the puck up just more often than is necessary. So maybe just paring it down to just the one. And obviously between the 2, you're going to keep Erik Karlsson. You just signed him to an $11.5 million contract of several years. So with Brent Burns, it seems like he would be the logical choice. Now I know your wife doesn't want to hear that, but that's what Aaron's referring to and why he keeps bringing it up is because it would solve some problems. Now imagine you trade Brent Burns for a guy who's a number 1 right winger. And I think a lot of teams would go for that trade because Brent Burns is phenomenal offensive talent from the blue line. If that's what you're missing, if that's the piece you need, then maybe you're willing to give up a guy from your first line who's expendable. Perhaps maybe there's a guy that's on your second line right wing or a prospect that you're picking up that can jump right in. Who knows?
Anthony,
but I think
you said you made my wife yell and she just threw a shoe at me.
I'm very sorry about that, and hopefully that shoe was not walked around outside too much and don't have any gum on it, because that's disgusting. Lady, stop throwing shoes at people. What's the matter with you? But no, okay, we're done talking about trading Brent Burns. I'm just letting you know that seems to be a way to fix some of the other problems that the Sharks have, not because Brent Burns sucks. Let's put it that way.
That's why he would be traded, because he is good.
Exactly. A lot of people, we always say this too, right? People want to say, oh, trade him, he sucks. Well, if he sucks, no one's going to want to take him. So
he still has an elite shot, a right-handed defenseman with an elite shot, both slapper and wrist shot. I think is even better than a slapper.
I like the wrister a lot.
He's still a very good player.
Absolutely.
And even if the Sharks don't trade him, I'm still going to be happy that he's on the Sharks.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah, so don't think that I'm a hater.
I feel like we need to apologize. We need to do something to get her back in his good graces now. We've uprooted a household, Aaron.
You know who is a UFA?
Who?
The Muffin Man.
Oh, God, no.
Ryan Reeves is a UFA.
That would never work. That would never work. Come on.
Just like DeBoer never coaching in Vegas?
No, that's different. That's
never
different.
Say never. I didn't see Gallant getting fired.
You got players in the locker room that are, come on, that's not going to work.
All they would do first day, walk up to each other in the locker room, make their peace, done. It's happened hundreds of times before.
Okay.
From worse than this.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Give me names. You got names?
No.
Okay, give me names later. We'll put them in the comment section down below, folks.
Mortal enemies
right.
turn teammates. Your teammates at that point. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, that's true. All right. Well, unless we have any other questions, are we're solid?
We're good. That's it. We're caught up on the chat.
Very good. Hey guys, we do appreciate you tuning in with us here, because it's been a while. We know we're trying to figure out the right technology to use for you, and obviously super producer Jason has a very big hand in that. So once again, I want to say thank you to super producer Jason for making this all possible. This show is only possible through him. So thank you, super producer Jason. Hopefully you guys had a great time. I know I had fun, and I'm looking forward to doing this again. I would love to get back in studio, but unfortunately that's just not in the cards right now. So
hopefully we can get some interviews up too.
And that's actually something we've been kind of throwing around back and forth, Aaron and I, and hopefully we get something going soon on that front. And if we do, obviously we'll let you guys know. So I guess that's it. So for super producer Jason, I'm Paul.
And I'm Aaron.
And we will see you guys.
Maybe next week.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, check out our other content, especially interviews. You can interact with us directly through social media at The Fin Factor and on Instagram at Fin Factor. And don't forget to join our live streams on YouTube.
Visit our website at thefinfactor.com, where you'll find all of our episodes as videos or podcasts. You'll also find our exclusive merchandise to help support our show.